Alrighty, we are here with Justin Lunny, co-founder. Well, actually, founder and CEO. I just made you a co. I co.
I'm good. I'm fine with that.
I code you. Founder and CEO of Everrati, one of the coolest companies I've ever come across, doing really really cool things in the classic car, sports car place. So fun episode if you're into cars, but also if you're into just really innovative entrepreneurship as well. Justin, thank you so much for joining today. We're going to talk all things Everrati and a lot of other things as well. How you doing today?
Very well. Very well. Thank you for inviting me. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. Well, thanks for flying across the pond for this. Just kidding. But before we get to Everati, I was looking at your background, and you have a lot of finance, you have a lot of sales, like a lot of really impressive roles in a variety of companies in your background. The one thing that
Hmm.
was pretty different that stuck out to me was a nursery. So you're a director
Yeah,
of Little Monkeys
that's
Nursery
right.
for a
Yeah.
few years. How how did that come about?
So yeah, that's actually my wife's business, which she set up and ran for 10 years, and would successfully actually passed that on to a private equity business.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing, hopefully, there is that it kind of talks to a bit about why I do Everati as well, because when I was setting up the business, my wife had already had these nurseries, which are preschools, private preschools. And I have a big kind of view around the future of our society, but also making sure that kids are okay, and actually, when I was setting up Everati, there were still kids dying in London of airborne related particles due to combustion, and therefore, doing something in EV, doing something with cars and actually making them cleaner, was largely to do as well with the fact that I want a better future for our kids as well.
Oh, that's a wonderful mission. Yeah, it's something that's easy to get passionate about. So, at what point? Well, I guess did it ever cross your mind that you'd actually be teaming up with your wife at some point in business?
Do you know what? She's probably a better salesperson than I am. So it's quite funny. We go to Pebble Beach or some of the other shows, and it's quite funny. It becomes quite a family affair. So she's there. My daughter and son, which I sometimes talk about to a large extent. But my son will be there in his sports coat, handing out leaflets on Everati. So it's always good fun.
What did you learn from working more closely with kids in that experience?
So, as much as anything, there's so much excitement and passion about all sorts of things, as you know. And I think the big thing for me, more recently, actually, was when my son was only 4, maybe 5. In fact, just before the pandemic. And I think as an adult, maybe you assume kids are only into new shiny things. And I actually had a Mercedes-Benz Pagoda, so one of the cars that we now create as an EV. I had one as a combustion engine vehicle, to really get some experience for that car. And my wife had said at the beginning of the pandemic, it was beautiful weather in the UK. Could I go out and get some food, for a barbecue? And at the time, I had some pretty special cars. I had a Ferrari, I had a very special Porsche, a G-Wagon on the drive, and my son, in his great 5-year-old sort of excitement, Daddy, can we travel in style today? Can we take the Pagoda? And that just told me that sometimes we're not really sure what's going on in the minds of these kids, but actually they love things just as much as we do sometimes, which is wonderful.
Yeah, whenever your baby's crying, just think about how they just want to travel in style. That's
That's
typically
exactly
the
right.
answer. It's not a diaper or sleep or hunger.
Exactly. All they're worried about is how they look. Yeah, exactly.
So let's get to Everati. So cars is obviously something that you started being interested in, the very nice, we'll call them stylish cars
Mm,
somewhere along the way.
yeah.
What got what was kind of the turning point that you thought, oh, I might start a business in the car space one day?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, I mean, as you've identified, I believe my mother, bless her, can't tell me this anymore, but she often said my first word was car. So that was rather than dad or mummy or whatever. So it's been pretty ingrained, I suppose, in my psyche forever. Um, and then roll forward, I mentioned my daughter earlier. I'd sold a business. I'd sold one of my fintech businesses around 2016, and she generally started worrying about the earth flooding, climate change. I thought, was there anything in clean tech I could look at? And then you'll also may be aware that when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were married at Windsor Castle. They actually drove away from their wedding. Their wedding car was actually an electric Jaguar E-Type, and that had been a specially commissioned vehicle. It was a one-off actually, but it had been specially commissioned. And that was my inspiration. I saw that happening, thinking, wow, Tesla clearly had been around for some years. We're starting to really get some growth. This was 2018. I knew I wasn't going to be the next Elon, but I knew that actually, if I could do something mixing my passion for technology, cars, and frankly, things of beauty, then that was a great opportunity.
Who knew? Harry and Meghan inspired so
Absolutely.
many different things in the world. Inspired
Indeed,
businesses.
absolutely. Yeah.
S- Okay, so it's one thing to have the nugget of inspiration and the idea. It's another thing to actually turn this into a real business, especially in a space that like the cars, the parts, everything is so expensive. Um, Obviously, a more premium consumer base as well.
Mm.
How how did you like brush up on your car knowledge enough that like, hey, we can actually do this. We can refit cars this way.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing was, I guess I had a bit of time initially. So I just sold a business. I wasn't in a huge rush to get started in many ways. It was, in fact, I'd even looked at investing in a business in this space. But yeah, for whatever reason, I decided I'd rather do it kind of as a new entity. Um, what the UK has, and specifically the area where Everrati's based here in Oxfordshire, is an incredible amount of talent around automotive. So when you consider pretty much barring Ferrari, actually, every Formula One team is based within 50 miles of where I'm sat right now. Formula E teams, you've got the likes of Jaguar Land Rover, Bentley, McLaren, Lotus. You've got so many companies that do either low volume or very specialist vehicle productions right through to OEM. What it means is you've got incredible talent pool. So I was very, very fortunate to meet a couple of engineers that wanted to come on this journey. And then I mentioned the pandemic earlier, but a couple of people were looking for jobs on LinkedIn, and reached out to me directly when they saw what I was doing, and that really built the core team. So really, it's all about people at the end of the day, and that was a wonderful thing to be able to bring those people together.
How long? Because I'm picturing just kind of like the early days of starting to post on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm doing this. Probably at the start, it was everyone like, "Oh, that's nice. Justin's got a new hobby."
Absolutely.
How long did it take for people to start taking you seriously as a real business?
Probably not too long. Do you know, it was great. The great news is, I think, fortunately, I've had a history of setting up businesses. I've thankfully had some success. Yes, of course, I've had some failures, which teach you a lot along the way as well. But I think, again, it was about building that team. If all of a sudden you can say, this individual from McLaren is on the team, or this individual from Lotus is on the team, all of a sudden, that does give an element of credibility. I think there is a lot of, unfortunately, in any industry, but there's been a lot of companies out there that have maybe come up with a great looking concept or a great looking kind of website, but actually they don't necessarily have the substance. We built the substance pretty quickly with the team that we have, and that gave us, I think, that credibility. Yeah, on day one. Of course, then you have to then build cars and get them reviewed, and people have to love them. But yeah, having the right team again was super important.
Yeah, the team makes everything possible, especially in a space where it's like there's so much tech or auto tech involved. We'll call it
Mm.
auto engineering. So what's your process like? Like for anyone not familiar, if you check out your website or hear about your company, it kind of seems like you're a magician. Like you have these amazing classic cars, and then like, wait, you're EV, you're electrifying them. As somebody who's, I would argue, probably doesn't know quite as much about cars as you do,
Hmm. Hmm.
it seems pretty incredible and hard to believe, and just impressive. So
Thank you.
how
Yeah.
what how do you work your magic, I guess?
So, the way we go about things is very much the way a vehicle manufacturer, an OEM, would go about things. So, when you think about our process, in the same way as if you were a powertrain, and powertrain is everything that powers that vehicle, powertrain engineer in, let's say, Bentley, Bentley powertrain engineer, they're kind of given already the architecture of the car they have to work within, to a point. And obviously they'll have input in that, but the shape, the size, is being predetermined in many ways. Our engineers, A, are used to that process, and B, in reality, all they're doing in inverted commas is taking the existing car, existing chassis, and recreating a brand new powertrain for that vehicle. So our process is one where we take an original vehicle, we do all the 3D scanning, we measure everything. So we've just done a car here that we'll be launching later next year. We've got 5.2 billion data points in CAD on that vehicle. We know everything about that car. So we put everything in kind of as a 3D twin, a 3D model in CAD. We do things like weigh the vehicle, so we know the corner weighting, so we know how much weight would have been over the front right wheel versus the front left, and all the other pieces. We measure the center of gravity, so we know exactly what the weight balance is on that vehicle. We then carefully take it apart entirely, right the way back to the chassis, if you like, the frame. 3D scan again, and then essentially we take a lot of measurements around, okay, how much battery, what motors sizing do we need, and essentially take a view that we're entirely creating a new powertrain for that vehicle. Then it's all about sourcing the right parts, the right components, and all the other pieces. So in essence, it's about 5,000 hours of engineering for each model that we do. We then build a prototype. We get to drive it around our track here in Oxfordshire,
That's probably the
uh,
best part.
which is a load of fun. So yeah, so it's a very, very detailed process. We're not just, people, there are people in the market that will, find an existing motor, let's say battery pack, and just put it together, and that's one way of doing it. I think we term what we do is redefine that vehicle as an EV, as opposed to just conversion, because we're doing so much more than probably than most. But what you end up is a car that's really enjoyable to use, and people are actually using them every single day, which is wonderful.
So you have, like, if you look through on your site, you have some of your models are like some of the most iconic, well-known brands out there. Which, for the record, it's Porsche, not Porsche, right? Because I feel like that's
Absolutely
a
right.
common mispronunciation.
Yeah,
but
precisely. Yeah, two
but
syllables.
yeah, but you got Porsche there, you've got Mercedes, you've got so many different lines there. So are you like official partners with those manufacturers? How does that work?
No. So we very much are respectfully redefining those existing vehicles. But the way the process works is the client. So we, I guess, sell the dream of, let's say, the electric Porsche, or the electric Mercedes-Benz Pagoda, or the electric Land Rover Series Classic. We sell the dream of that particular model. We then help the client identify what we call the donor car, so the original, 1960s vehicle. They will purchase that or already own it. They will bring it to us, and then the fun begins. Then all of our work begins from there.
It is on a much more lighthearted note, but in the medical world, when they need to find organ donors and perform things like that, it's totally different. But same idea, you need to find a donor. Uh,
That's right, exactly.
what about outside of that? What's your do you do any customized cars outside of that, or do you kind of stick to like your main core cars right now?
So we do have what we call a bespoke program, or a private office program. So we do one or two of those, if you like it, or we start one or two of those a year. They are not for the faint-hearted, right? Because really, what we're saying here is, if we're going to do a brand new, from zero model, that can take up to 5,000 hours, of engineering and development. As you can imagine, that is not an inexpensive process.
Oh, it's. I thought you just do it for free. I was
Yeah,
expecting a
exactly.
knock on the door after this interview.
Precisely. However, what I would say is, because we've already done a front engine rear drive powertrain, which we use in our Pagoda, that powertrain is probably circa 70% relevant for virtually every Mercedes, BMW, Aston Martin, Bentley, Rolls-Royce that was built between 1960s and say 1990s. It does need re-engineering, it does need mechanical engineering, but the architecture is there, certainly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like what you're doing is already so custom, and then if somebody wants to do like something that's outside the box of cars that you have, it's even more custom, even more bespoke, to use your word.
That's
It's
right.
yeah, it's mind blowing. I can't imagine. It probably is literally that many hours. You mentioned, of course, the high price point, the high amount of hours involved. Like this is an expensive space you're in. How do you? What does that look like in your sales process? You mentioned kind of
Hmm.
selling the dream.
Yeah.
I imagine it's not. This is not like a quick, like you meet somebody and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to buy one right away." Like
Right.
what have you and team learned that helps in the sales process for these high ticket cars?
Yeah. So look, we've been very deliberate in getting journalists in our cars, right from day one, right? So the very first car we had to test was late 2021, and I think we were fortunate enough to get some, definitely some great journalists, but we had pieces in Rob Report, we had pieces in Top Gear magazine, and various other publications. So very early on, my view was always, if we can get good reviews, people will listen, and they'll read them, and maybe watch things on our YouTube. So that was a very deliberate strategy. Um, and then, once somebody starts to talk to us in the early days, yes, of course, sometimes that took quite a long period. Having said that, and that could be 3 to 6 months. Having said that, literally, one of the most recent commissions, and we call them commissions, where somebody actually commissions a vehicle from us, that took 6 days from first contact to them actually signing an agreement, and then we're starting the build program. So it can be pretty short. That said, we have a client who took nearly 6 months to choose their color, because they wanted something very, very specific. So it really does depend on the client, and what interests them, really, I guess, as well.
Hey, I've seen, we're in the era where we got married a few years ago. We've got friends that are getting married now. I've seen how long it takes to choose a color for a bridesmaid dress. So
Absolutely.
totally understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations, but yes, you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
It's a very personal process sometimes.
Appreciate that. So if you kind of zoom out a little bit and look at Everrati where it is today, what would you say, besides the journalist, because I think that strategy is brilliant, what would you say in addition to that has been like a big driver of the growth and actually getting people to buy these?
And yeah, it's all then about it's about kind of people's experiences, right? So we are fortunate again to have clients that are fairly, I wouldn't say, well, some are very high profile, but we don't necessarily talk about them specifically. But when somebody has definitely commissioned a vehicle, they get to they might be seen at a show, or this car is seen out on the road. People are using them on a daily basis, and these are people, by the way, that sometimes have two cars, sometimes have 200 cars. These are people that actually have a collection, but choose to use what we have created for them on a daily basis. So I think that again is a very big tick in the box for people to say, okay, this is real. This isn't just vaporware. And then hopefully, people get to see the quality. They get to see things like the paint finish and all the other things that make that whole vehicle something that's attractive. So yeah, definitely journalism, definitely clients, and then outside of that, what sells cars. It's all about the, what might be a beautiful image or whatever that gets somebody in to actually consider this, I suppose.
How do you find, people with the pockets to spend this much on
Mm.
cars or car collectors? Like, how do you get in front of people that are
Yeah.
your target market, I guess?
Yeah, it's good question. So again, a lot of these people read publications or they might be on social media. But probably more importantly is that we have a couple of strategies. One is certain events, lifestyle or very high-end automotive events. So it might be something, it might be something like Pebble Beach, where you've got very very high-end car collections or collectors, should I say. Or it might be something like Monaco Yacht Show, or it'll be something. So some of these lifestyle events. I'm at an event in the Hamptons next month. It'll be a very private event, invitation only. So yeah, we get to show cars and be in places that are we're very fortunate to be in, and actually to meet the right people, I suppose. So that's very much been part of the strategy as well.
Oh, perfect. Well, we have a family trip out in the Hamptons later this summer, so maybe we'll see you there. We'll just bring the whole family up to the event.
Hopefully, yeah, big time.
The kids like to ride in style. Uh,
Perfect. So as they should, as they should.
so I want to switch it up a little bit because you mentioned that you've had a lot of business success and selling, especially that fintech company or finance company, but then you've had some failures as well, which
Mm.
arguably, as you said, you can learn even more from. So I
That's
want to
right.
parse out some of those lessons there. I guess
Yeah.
on the success or exit side, would you say is the key for anybody out there who's an entrepreneur and wants to sell their business one day?
I think it's very easy to kind of think that you are the most important person in the room. And I think that the big learning is that if you are the most important person in the room, and you can't be replaced, that's not a business, because by definition you have to have people that could run whatever you're doing once you walk out the door. If you have a successful exit and you want to go lay on the beach, or you want to go swim, or you want to go onto your yacht, or to go skiing. The reality is, unless that business operates fully without you, then that you're never going to make that work. So definitely having again the right team, getting a team that can replace you. And that might be difficult for some people to kind of come to terms with, but that is so critical because again, for that very reason. And I think the other thing is that trust your conviction. There are people, I think, that probably do something or create a business that they think they should be doing, as opposed to actually having that kind of gut feeling that this is the right thing to do and it's something I know that I can make a success of. It might not always come true, but I think you have to really enjoy what you're doing, and you have to be able to give it 110% all the time, because that starting a business is not always as straightforward as people might have you believe, obviously, as well.
Yeah, well, that's just the easiest thing ever. You just start it. It's it's as easy as converting cars to electric,
Always.
right?
That's right. Exactly. It's magic.
Yeah, those are great pizza. Great pizza. I guess I'm hungry. Great piece is of advice, and actually, we had pizza this week, so that's what's on the mind. But
Perfect.
the piece about how the business needs to operate well without you, I think is so strong. And we previously on the podcast a while back had John Warlow on of Built to Sell fame and all those
Hmm.
books about that. And that's one of his main principles is like the business needs to be able to exist without you. Like work yourself out of your own role and focus
That's
on
right.
beyond the business stuff, because otherwise you'll never be able the business won't be able to exist without you.
That's right.
So it's wonderful to hear that that's what's happened
Mm.
with your business in the past. How about on the flip side of things, failure? Can you
Mm.
share a failure you've had in the business space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, actually, this was in a completely different industry. This was precious metals recycling, which
I was
sounds
going to
very
guess
grand,
that.
yeah, very grandiose. But essentially, you'll be familiar that most tech has a printed circuit board. That printed circuit board has copper. It might have gold. It might have palladium, and but had a business that was essentially using a brand new process to extract all of those metals from a discarded piece of tech, and then essentially take that raw material and reprocess it. Now, at the time we were doing this, we had a business down in South Wales, um, and I think again, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but we were a very small business. We were using a new technology to do this. But it was affected so much by some pretty big things out of our control. And what was out of our control at the time was that China shut down to processing waste from other countries. So all of a sudden, all of this tech waste was effectively having to stay either onshore or just be shipped, let's say, within the US or within Europe. And of course, therefore, the ability to process those raw materials almost vanished overnight. So being in an industry where just one thing can trip you up, I think is always is always going to be a problem. And of course, no one has a crystal ball. No one can predict those things. But ideally, you want a business where not just one thing could take you out entirely, and that was what happened with with what we were doing. Great experience, by the way. And but yeah, that's certainly something that taught us a lesson, that's for sure.
Oh, totally. Well, I'm glad you got back on your feet, and actually, you got your feet in some beautiful cars as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
What would you say, failure wise, like if there's an entrepreneur tuning in who business has just really suffered past few years, what advice do you have about kind of like getting over failure and either moving on to the next thing or turning that thing
Yeah.
around?
Yeah. I think, look, I think it's overused, but trust your gut. Either this is right or it's wrong. I think there can be downtimes where your gut maybe won't tell you the truth, if you know what I mean, or you believe
It's a
you know
deceptive gut. No.
yeah, and I think it's so important to kind of really listen to yourself, strip back and basically have that ability to reconnect with why you're doing something, and that's got to be really important. But if it genuinely isn't working, that it, it's not the end of the world. That there'll always be other things that come up or that you can do, which isn't always straightforward. But I think also you've got to learn sometimes when you have gone too far on something, and know when to stop and know when to pivot. Pivoting is so important. It really is. I would say the most important thing in a startup is, you might think that you're going to have one particular avenue, um, and that generally will open up something else if something isn't quite right, or isn't quite kind of working. So being able to pivot, being able to be, yes, true to your beliefs, but actually if there is an opportunity to utilize that same core but in a slightly different way, that's also hugely important, I would say.
Yeah, you hear entrepreneurs talk about that. Like if it's anybody who's like lost everything from a business sense or financial hardship, is like it's the moments like that you realize what truly matters the most and like what you truly care about, and um, to hang in there and kind of get to the next thing, and you realize like, well, there's so many things that we have on the day to day that really like are meaningless compared to or meaningless things that we stress about compared to what's truthfully most important. So
Definitely.
I love that there. Well, let's wrap up with a speedy fast car version of rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Hmm. Let's give it a try.
All right, let's get wild. Let's strap our seatbelts on here. I used to make the joke all the time, like, all right, you ready? You got your seatbelt strap? But I think it's especially relevant here. All
Definitely.
right, what's the first car you ever had?
A Renault 5. Renault 5, not something that is very popular in the United States, but yeah, little French car, great fun. Went round corners pretty well. Yeah, so yeah, it was a very fond memory, and had a couple of them actually, so it's good.
And what is the fastest you've ever been while driving?
Myself driving about 186 miles an hour.
Wow, where what? if you can say legally, where was
I can say legally,
that?
yeah, it was on a test track here in the UK. So
Ooh, that's so fun.
it would have been a bit quicker than that, but the test track was running out, so I decided to to slow it down after that. Yeah,
Good.
but great fun.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. Because then
Yeah,
this interview could happen. No.
absolutely.
What is the coolest experience you ever had at like a big car race?
So I would say certainly a car meet has been just the cool. Yeah, some very, very, very respected individuals in the car world coming in, kind of congratulating us on what we do. Because sometimes you sit there and you think, is everyone cool with this? And not everyone's ever going to be 100% cool, but yeah, that's been great. Just getting some really good praise from people that are very respected in in the industry.
And is there like what's your, you don't have to lay out your whole schedule, but like do you typically go to a lot of big events like Formula One, the
Yeah.
different like the French races, like all everything like that?
Yeah, so I've just come back from Le Mans, the 24-hour last weekend, where we
Oh my
Wednesday,
God,
so I came
you must
back
be
on
tired.
Sunday. You know, I live with that all the time. I'm actually at the British Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. I was
Wow.
in Monaco. I'm over for Pebble Beach car show very short, well, in August. So yeah, I'm very fortunate. You know, my passion and my and my day job are kind of very yeah, I guess compatible from that perspective.
You've built a very not boring life for yourself.
I try.
All right, what is your favorite movie or TV show all time about a car?
That's very easy. So it's actually one that is known, I think, as Le Mans 66 or Ford versus Ferrari,
Mm.
and that's really because again, my son, who's now 10, he watched that with me as a much younger boy, and yeah, we tend to just sit down and watch that quite regularly. I'm looking forward, however, to the F1 movie, which is just out, so I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Oh yeah, that's it's funny. You could feel your face light up. Like I think so many of us have movies and TV shows that are nostalgic about. And actually, if you think about it, cars are like an integral part in all of them, even if they're not necessarily about like a car race or something like that. So
Precisely. Yeah,
it's funny like that. I
so
was
iconic.
I
Yeah.
still remember Speed Racer and the Mach 5 growing up and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
All right,
Definitely.
if you could drive an Everrati anywhere in the world, where would like your paradise be to drive one?
You know, I've been so lucky. I've already driven like PCH, which is a iconic Pacific Coast Highway, obviously. I've already driven through Monaco in an Everrati. Just trying to think of somewhere. I've already driven weirdly down Fifth Avenue in an Everrati, so I've been very fortunate to do a lot of this stuff already. But what I would say is probably doing something like the Mille Miglia. So it's the the race, the very famous race in Italy. Where you've got some incredible cars, some incredible scenery, some incredible people, and in the evenings you get to sample some great food and some great wine. So that is yeah, an experience I've not had as yet, but that would be pretty cool.
All right, and then last one, it could be a real manufacturer, or it could be something from like comic books or a TV show or movie, anything like that. What would be like your dream type of car or concept car to Everrati eyes, if it was possible?
So it's interesting. I'm we're actually looking at some projects at the moment that are really cool, two-seater sports cars, very lightweight, very engaging. So I wouldn't put a specific brand behind it necessarily, but something that is probably European Italian design inspired, with a beautiful body, and obviously an incredible Everradi powertrain. So we've got a few in the works, and yeah, watch this space. But yeah, that kind of just fun car, engaging car. You definitely want the roof down. You definitely want to be enjoying yourself. So yeah, that's the direction of travel.
Perfect. Well, Justin, thank you so much for making time today. I absolutely love what you're doing with Everrati. Really one of the most clever, unique, and creative companies I've come across. So thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to call this Funny with Lunny, Fun with Lunny. But I know if anybody wants to learn more or purchase an Everrati, you can do so at everrati.com. That's Everrati, which I always trip up while spelling, so we can fix that later if so. But Everrati.com. And then if anybody wants to connect with you online, Justin, where's the best place to do so?
Either via the website or Instagram, everraticars.com, or Everrati Cars, should I say, on Insta. Yeah, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to find out what we can create for you. And just, we love what we do, and we love to talk to new people about it. So yeah, we very always open to chat.
Perfect. And then I hope you're open to final thoughts. Last thing here. Final thoughts. It could be a quote, words to live by, just whatever you want. Just one line to send us home here.
I think always, again, I've said it already, trust your gut. If you want to have fun in life and you want to try and make it through and have the best time, trust your gut. And sometimes that creates some incredible opportunities. So I think that would be the one thing for me.
Bring on the bongos.